Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A session on the draft Downtown Festival District. This is a set of proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance for an area of downtown that we're calling the Downtown Festival District. And this district is really birthed out of the downtown plan, which was approved a couple of years ago and is one of the implementation measures. And there's a set of amendments that are being grouped together in addition to creating the Downtown Festival District. So to summarize those, but before I get into the summary of the draft, I did want to introduce other staff that's on the in the session for us today that may be able to help answer some questions as we go through the draft. We have Diane Ken, who's the Director of Planning and Community Development. And then we also have Colleen Moraes, who's the Downtown and Small Business Coordinator for the town. So to summarize the proposed amendments, we will be creating the Downtown Festival District, clarifying standards for outdoor storage and sales within the Central Business District, which is a smaller area of downtown. Amend the standards for promotional events within this proposed district. Create the uses parking garage public and parking lot public to be distinguished separately from parking lot and parking garage commercial. Revise how uses that serve alcohol are permitted, and provide a definition for outdoor operations and create standards for the outdoor operations aspect of certain uses. And we'll be getting into that a little in depth in just a moment, and I think that'll be more clear what that is as we get to it. I'm going to be pausing after sections of this, so if you have questions, feel free to enter those into the chat, and then we'll take those as we go along, but also have time for Q&A at the end. So the first amendment is to create the Downtown Festival District. And the purpose of the district is to celebrate the Salem Street corridor and vicinity and encourage a diversity of activities and programming by allowing more entertainment options on public and private properties than in other areas of town, while being cognizant of the surrounding residential neighborhoods. And there's, generally speaking, the area proposed for the district is shown in blue on the map to the right here. So we follow the Salem Street corridor on the south end from East William Street or 55 all the way north. And then once we get to just north of where the Halley is, not too much further north than that, then we're focusing on the east side of North Salem Street, where it's and on the opposite side of the railroad track. So this is the park, Hunter Street Park, Town Hall campus, some of the non-residential parcels on the north side of Hunter Street. And then west of Salem Street, areas that are generally non-residential or already zoned mixed use or non-residential for the most part on the west side of Salem Street, and extending further west into C.C. Jones Park. So are there any questions about the proposed boundaries of the festival district? I'll pause just a moment here to see if there's any questions about the boundaries. Okay, we can of course take questions later as we go through this presentation. So moving on, just a couple of minor modifications are proposed to the standards for outdoor storage and sales. In the Central Business District, there's currently a reference to outdoor storage, display, and sales and rentals. And in the Central Business District, which is really the core of our main downtown area, around where generally the Halley and our main commercial area, heart of downtown, the storage is really not a necessity in those areas. What we see on the sidewalks is sales and display. And so we want to ensure that the ordinance appropriately reflects what's allowed on public sidewalks. So not storage of goods, but more the display and sales of items for retail sales. So just a minor modification to that section. One of the primary changes that will point to the Downtown Festival District is an increase in the number of promotional events that are allowed for each business. So currently, businesses are limited to no more than 3 promotional events per calendar year. And so this is an event that's not necessarily directly tied to the use of the business, but is something extra to draw people, to the site. And so, as I said, there's currently a limitation of 3 per year. But in order to create a more vibrant downtown and bring more activity downtown, we want to encourage and allow more promotional events. So the proposal is that within the Downtown Festival District, you would be able to have 1 promotional event per business per month. So instead of 3 per year, there would be 1 per month. And the promotional event would be limited to 1 day in length. And any outdoor areas associated with the promotional event would be located at least 45 feet from a residential zoning district or a conforming detached single-family dwelling, not to include the high-density multifamily or mixed office residential retail zoning districts. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions on this part of the amendments. I know it can take some time to type into the chat, so I'm just going to give another few seconds here. Okay, we'll keep moving on, but of course, like I said before, if you have a question, put it in the chat at any time. There are also proposed changes related to parking, as I mentioned before, specifically to create the uses parking garage and parking lot public. And these would be allowed in the same zoning districts as currently allowed for commercial parking lots. And then, but the proposal is that within the downtown, so we have definitions that we will be adding for parking lot public and parking garage public. And these are standalone parking lots. These are not parking lots associated with a business. These are just standalone where that's the principal use of the property is parking. And the associated changes related to parking is that a commercial parking lot shall not be allowed within the Downtown Festival District. We want to encourage active uses and businesses and mixed use developments in downtown, and limit the areas, for be very mindful about where parking is allowed, parking as a principal use. So that a vacant parcel or a parcel with a building wouldn't be torn down to put up a parking lot. And then for parking garage or lot public, proposing use standards for that use, that within the Downtown Festival District, any new public parking garages or lots shall not be located immediately adjacent to Salem Street. And within the Downtown Festival District, a public parking garage shall meet the following design standards, in addition to what is applicable from the Small Town Character Overlay District and our design standards. And that's the first floor facades along rights of way shall be wrapped with a non-residential use. So essentially, we want to ensure that that first floor has an active use and isn't just filled up with cars. And at least 75% of the exterior shall be brick. And so that is to keep in context with, the design that we see in downtown. Before I move on, I see we have a couple of comments. So the first question is, are you saying that each business can create an event once per month? And so if the event is something in your business that's directly related to the business at hand, then you don't have to get a promotional event permit for that. Promotional event permits, we are proposing that be increased to 1 per month per business. And again, the promotional events are those events that aren't directly related to the business. So for instance, if a restaurant wanted to host a promotional event that was an arts fest or craft festival, and everybody was coming to craft, those, normally you don't have crafting in a restaurant. So those would be something that would be separate and would require a promotional event, just as an example.
So Amanda, this is Diane. I just want to clarify, these special events are on private property only and outside. If something's fully inside, they do not require a promotional event.
Thank you for that clarification, Diane. So hopefully that answers the question there. Okay. All right. Moving on. So we also have some proposed changes to the way alcohol is allowed in businesses. And one change that is proposed, this is small, so make it a little bigger here, is to the use bar, nightclub, wine bar, or tap room. And the proposal is to allow this, to change the use from being allowed with only a special use permit to being allowed by right in the districts where it's currently allowed. So that would be our neighborhood business zoning district, our downtown business district, planned commercial, traditional neighborhood development, planned unit development, and in the small town character overlay. Primarily in downtown, most of the commercial businesses are zoned B2 in the heart of downtown. And so we would find the B1 and PC districts in other areas of town. So some of these changes apply outside of downtown as well as within downtown. And if you're not familiar with the special use permit process, which is how this use is currently allowed, special use permits are required to be approved by the Board of Adjustment in a quasi-judicial public hearing, and they have to make findings, including that the use is appropriate for the area proposed. One other change to the use table that is proposed is to allow the use restaurant general in the Tech Flex zoning district. And Tech Flex is a zoning district that's commonly found in those areas that are between the commercial and the industrial areas. It's a little more intense set of uses than our commercial districts, but not quite as intense as light industrial. And another change that's being made to all of the definitions of the uses is removing the language that the use is regulated by generating a certain percentage of its quarterly gross receipts from the sale of alcoholic beverages. This brings up some enforcement issues and difficulty with enforcement and tracking, and so we've proposed some modifications to the definitions accordingly. So the change for the definition for bar, nightclub, wine bar, or tap room would be an establishment primarily dispensing alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises. This use typically includes live bands, other music, and dancing, as well as games of skill, such as but not limited to pool or darts for use by the patrons of the establishment. This use may include the on-premise sale, service, and consumption of food. So as we move through the other uses related to alcohol, you'll see the same striking of the language relating to the threshold of 49% of the quarterly receipts being alcoholic beverages. For the use brewery, we're also clarifying that the use may include a tasting room and retail space to sell the beer to patrons on the site. So we want to allow more flexibility with this use, so they would also be able to serve and have consumption of food on premises. Same change is proposed with the distillery, and this is already allowed the tasting room and retail space in the microbrewery, so we're extending that to the other uses that are similar in nature. Any questions on the alcohol-related changes? Give just a moment. Okay, seeing none yet. So moving on, we are proposing to add a definition or a term to the UDO called outdoor operations. And the proposed definition is an area designated for seating, food or beverage service, entertainment, or other similar activities located outside the primary business. So this would be the outdoor components or operations, like the term says, anything that's outdoors outside of the primary business. And the concern here is to address the noise impact that the outdoor operations of uses have on certain adjacent residential areas. So we've proposed some use standards that are the same use standards for most of these uses. And the first we'll review for the bar use. Outside of the downtown festival district, outdoor operations of such use shall not be located within 100 feet of a residential district or property containing a conforming single-family detached dwelling, not including the high-density multifamily or mixed office residential retail district, and outdoor live or recorded acoustic or amplified entertainment shall not be permitted on properties directly adjacent to any conforming single-family detached dwelling with no intervening right-of-way, except when approved according to the standards for a promotional event found in section 4.6. So that was the standards we were talking about earlier. So if you're closer, if you're immediately adjacent to a conforming single-family detached dwelling, and there's no intervening, right-of-way, then that's when you would have to get a promotional event permit, temporary use permit for a promotional event for that. Within the downtown festival district, the area separation requirement for outdoor operations is less, so it reduces down to 45 feet. And then within the district, the standard for outdoor live music is a little different. Outdoor live or recorded acoustic or amplified entertainment shall require approval of a temporary use permit for a promotional event in accordance with temporary uses and structures. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to try to get us where you can see everything on the screen for inside and outside the festival district at one time, because this standard is going to be the same whether you're a restaurant or a bar or any other type of use that would have an outdoor operations component. And pause here to see if there are any questions related to these standards. And just while we're waiting for questions, we our GIS staff mapped the district and all of the current uses that have outdoor areas, seating areas or serving areas, and map these boundaries. And that helped us to see that outside the downtown festival district, we're not making anyone non-conforming. Everyone can comply with this. We don't feel it's an onerous standard to meet. And we feel fairly confident that 99% of everyone within the downtown festival district currently would not be penalized by this standard, I should say. Okay, I have no questions so far, so we're going to move on. As I said before, food and beverage service, restaurant in general, these same standards, the same wording follows through, and with retail sales and service, also if there's an outdoor operations component, the same wording for the standards applies there as well. And that is the end of the draft standards. These standards will also apply, I'm not sure why there's maybe a page missing, but these standards will also apply to the microbrewery, microdistillery, brewery, and distillery uses, those 4 uses, as it's to be similar across the board for all outdoor operations areas. So any more questions about the proposed downtown festival district? I'd be happy to answer those. We anticipate that these UDO amendments will be going to be heard by the Planning Board as a new business item on April 11th. That meeting is at 4:30 p.m. and then will be heard by Town Council on May 10th at their regular meeting, which starts at 6 o'clock. What are the fees for having a promotional event? I am going to have to pull that up. I believe the temporary use permit fee is either $100 or $200. So on our application and fee schedule, so this is, I can show you how to access the Planning Department's website. So from apexnc.org, you will go to the Planning and Community Development page. And we have a link to applications and schedules. And the application form that you will need is temporary use permit event, private property only. And the fee for a for-profit event is $75, so less than I had said. And for a nonprofit event is $25. And there is a $50 express review fee if it is submitted 3 days or less before the event start date. So this is the application form that you would use for the promotional event.
Actually, Amanda, the fee's $50 for a for-profit event and $0 for a nonprofit. The express review fee are the two check boxes, 75 and 25 if you need a 3-day review. It's a little confusing. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But in the fee schedule, it's more clear.
Okay, we have a couple. How will town employees be impacted by increasing events? So that is the question. How will town employees be impacted by increasing events? I mean, if there are more events, we'll certainly have more promotional events, more temporary use permits to review. So that would be one impact. But other than that, I'm not certain how town employees would be impacted by increasing events.
So just to be clear, again, this is on private property only. This is not events that take place on public property or within Salem Street. And so it's a promotional event for businesses. It is not a special event, which are the big events that occur in town that take many different departments, police, public works, parks and rec, etc. These are private events on private property. So this is Diane again. I just wanted to mention, we did hear from one of the attendees that they were moving their cursor around and unintentionally muted their own sound. And so just to let you all know, if you were having problems with sound, it may have been you moving your cursor around. There's not much need to move your cursor except to click on the question answer box. So hopefully that won't occur for other folks.
Okay, so there is a question about handicap parking availability. So this does not change anything about meeting ADA parking requirements and handicap parking. None of the changes here would affect the amount of handicap parking required or offered. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's probably all the questions that we're going to have for right now, but as I said before, you can always send an email to amanda.bunce, B-U-N-C-E, @apexnc.org. If you have any questions about the proposed draft, I'd be happy to respond. And we did have one more question. My business is in a privately owned building on Salem. Does that mean my business wouldn't apply? So if the question is about if you need to apply for a temporary use permit for a promotional event that's occurring outdoors, then yes. If it's located wholly inside and in your building, then no, you would not need a promotional event for that. And but businesses along the Salem along the Salem Street corridor would be included as shown on the map within the downtown festival district. And then we had another question. The web presentation was not available to me. I'm concerned about a lot of people and so little parking already. So the town is working on a plan to increase the amount of parking in the downtown area with a combination of repurposing the Saunders Street lot and providing more on-street spaces. That plan will take time to implement, and those were all recommendations that were included in the adopted downtown plan. Again, that plan was approved a couple of years ago, and this is one of the implementation measures. So I understand the question there, but the town is working to increase the amount of parking. Where are those spaces? Is the question. The additional parking is scattered throughout downtown where there's the ability to provide more on-street spaces. The town will take that opportunity to do that. I believe some of those are along Salem Street before Hunter near the Duncan Commons building in this corridor. In the Saunders Street lot is the gravel lot, and also the town's paved parking that's behind the businesses on Salem Street. So that's a possibility for an area of more parking. And there are other private owners such as Apex Baptist Church that welcomes people to park in their parking lot as for when you're coming downtown to shop or dine.
Amanda, this is Diane again. I recently saw plans for our downtown projects, which will expand the Saunders Street parking lot by many more parking spaces. I don't have the exact number right now. And also there is a small plan to expand some spaces along Center Street. And so you'll start seeing more marked spaces on street in different locations. And then the large plan is to expand the Saunders Street parking lot.
And also make improvements for a few spaces or some improvements behind in the Commerce Street, basically the alley, Commerce Street and Seaboard Street. So future plans for improvements to those areas as well with some parking, which would include handicap accessible spaces.
Hey, this is Colleen from the town of Apex also. I did put in the chat for those in reply to that question about parking. The design plans that were adopted by council last summer are available on public input, and people can look at them there. So these are the approved plans that are now in design development.
Thank you, Colleen. There's a question, the big new building. Believe you may be referring to the Highline Building, which is the 3-story building at the corner of Salem Street and Saunders Street. They are providing some parking spaces on their property and will be leasing spaces from the town and I believe in the area behind their building. So they are providing some spaces on their own property for the business. In general, parking requirements in the downtown core are less than out in the suburbs, and that is to ensure that we have a vibrant, dense commercial area and not more parking than is necessary to support the businesses, so we can encourage as much retail development and mixed-use development as possible.
This is Diane, and the other thing, we will be having our very first transit circulator route called Go Apex 1 that will come right through this whole area with stops in various locations that will allow folks to come to our downtown and not have to drive.
That's
and
right.
That will be starting, it's supposed to start this summer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Diane. I think that is helpful to point out the ability to have transit downtown.
One of those stops, just so people know, is in front of the historic Union Depot, right downtown.
Okay, we have another question. Leasing spaces, meaning some of the spaces in the main lot will be exclusive to that building.
I don't believe that's true, Amanda. I think it was a discussion at one point, but we'll, if you'd like to give us your email address, we can get back to you, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case. There was a discussion, but I don't believe that ever occurred.
Okay. Yeah, the parking requirements are very low in downtown, so I think that was more, like Diane said, something that was discussion. It's been a long process getting from beginning of plan submittal to construction. We had some town council member, Mr. Gant, thank you. He said, thanks for the information. And then a question, but is this transportation handicap accessible?
Yes, it will be.
Yes, the transit route will be handicap accessible. That's a requirement. And where is this parking information located? If you're referring to the parking requirements that I'm referring to, those are in the Unified Development Ordinance. Section 8.3 contains all of our parking related standards. And the Unified Development Ordinance is available on the town's website. Okay, seeing no new questions, once again, thank you for attending today. And if you have any other questions about the proposed amendments, you can email me at any time at amanda.bunce, B-U-N-C-E, at apexnc.org. And we thank you for attending today. Take care, everyone.